Thank you for watching another episode of Dvar Malchus from the Parshas Vayigash, the 7th of Teves 57-52. We are on page 343. We have spoken many times that the matters that are told over in the Torah, an idiom for ha'orah, instruction, contain in them eternal instructions for every Jew and for all Jews in every time, in every place, and in every situation. General instructions as well as specific instructions befitting the special, unique situations of a specific time and place in which a Jew finds himself. Likewise is also regarding today, Parsha of Torah, which we must live this week. Vayigash and Yehuda approached him, which from this is an eternal instruction which describes the content of the service and matter of the conduct of a Jew, also befitting the present time in the last moment of exile, literally next to the true and complete redemption is spoken many times and especially recently. At first glance, the connection of the Parshas, Vayigash, and Yehuda approached him to the redemption is emphasized in the Haftorah of this Shabbos, which is connected to the content of the Parsha, where it speaks about the union of the kingdom of Yehuda and the kingdom of Yosef. In the time to come, take for yourself one stick and write on it for Yehuda, and take one stick and write on it for Yosef, and bring them close to each other, and make it be one stick for you. So Adonai Hashem, behold, it will take the Jewish people from among the nations, and they went to, and I will gather them from all around, and I will make them into one nation. And there will be one king from all of them. My servant David will be their leader forever, and the nations will know that I am Hashem. However, in addition to the fact that the Haftorah only expresses the connection to the redemption, however, we do not have a lesson in practical instruction from it in the service of the Jewish people presently in the days and the moments right before the redemption. We must also have an explanation in the connection of the Haftorah of the Parsha. For on the contrary, and Yehuda approached him in the Parsha is seemingly the opposite content of David, my servant, is leader forever. In the Haftorah, since in Yehuda approached Yosef, and in the Parsha in general is emphasized how Yosef is the one in charge, the second to the king in the land of Egypt, and Yehuda needs his help. He needs to approach him, Vayigash, Aleph. And he approached him and requested that he free Benjamin. And he said, please, my master, may your servant speak, for you are like Paro. You are in my eyes like a king, since Paro placed him over all the land of Egypt, and no man can lift his hand or foot without your consent, and especially since Paro was a ruler of the whole world, whereas in the time to come, as it discussed in the Haftorah, the staff of Yehuda will be the one above them, even Yosef. One king there will be for all of them, and my servant David of the tribe of Yehuda will be the king over all of them, and my servant David will be their leader forever. We will understand this first by explaining the connection of the beginning of the Parsha with its connection. As we have spoken many times, that in accordance with the rule, their end is wedged into their beginning, and their beginning into their end. There is a special connection between the beginning and the end of the Parsha, and this too needs explanation. At the end of the Parsha it says, and the Jewish people settled in the land of Egypt and the land of Goshen, and they conquered it, and they multiplied greatly. Which this indeed shows the strength of Yaakov and his children, that even when they were in the land of Egypt, which was under the rule of the Paro, the king of Egypt, Paro said, the best of the land of Egypt is yours. And as per his command, they received a portion in the best of the land, and in the manner that they conquered it, and they multiplied greatly. On the other hand, and Yehuda approached him in the beginning of the Parsha, emphasizes that Yehuda and his brothers are in a negative state, for they need to succumb to beg Yosef, seeing that he is the one in charge of the whole land of Egypt, and prior to Yosef revealed his identity to his brothers, the exact opposite of the content of the end of the Parsha. And when we say the explanation of this, although it seems at first glance that Yehuda approaching Yosef denotes the strength of Yosef as the leader of the land of Egypt and how Yehuda needs him, when one thinks into it, it is clear that Yehuda conducted himself here with extraordinary boldness and strength. Yosef was at the time as the delegate of Paro, the ruler of the land, which without your consent no man can lift his hand or his foot in the whole land of Egypt. Moreover, Paro at the time was a ruler over the whole earth, and Yosef was like Paro, as Yehuda said himself. Nevertheless, we see that Yehuda, not knowing that this was his brother Yosef, was not intimidated by this, and conducted himself with complete boldness, and without even asking permission from Yosef, not even asking permission from Yosef, he goes to Yosef. and with a bold approach and speaks to him harshly, which therefore he prefers you should not get angry, even though he placed himself in a life-endangering position because of this, knowing what Yosef could do to him for his chutzpah. Indeed, this concludes that Yehuda approached him, shows the strength of Yehuda. According to this, we can understand the connection of the Yehuda approached him, and with the strength of the Jewish people in the land of Egypt at the end of the Parsha, and the Jewish people settled in the land of Egypt and the land of Goshen, and they took a stronghold of it, and they multiplied greatly, and also the strength of the ascent of Yehuda in the Haftorah, and David my servant will be their leader forever, which is a foretaste of this is expressed in the strength of Yehuda approached him. And when we say that the strength and Yehuda approached him gave the power, and afterward Yaakov and his children descended to Egypt in a manner that not only will they be under the rule of Egypt, rather on the contrary, and they took a stronghold of it and multiplied greatly. Moreover, this is preparation that leads to the state of, and David my servant will be their leader forever, as we will explain. And this needs even more explanation. The above spoken regarding the strength of Yehuda approached him was from the perspective of Yehuda's original understanding that Yosef was the second to the king from the nations of the world. Prior to, Yosef revealed his identity to his brothers, which although regarding the strength of Yehuda, this makes no difference, since he did not know that this was Yosef. However, after it was revealed that it is Yosef, indeed, according to how it was, in truth, it is seemingly not any more necessary to have strengthened Yehuda in order to accomplish, and they took stronghold of it. And on the contrary, it is seemingly obvious that the strength of, and they took a stronghold came through Yosef. For Hashem sent me in front of you to place for you a refuge in the land and to grant your lives for a great salvation. And Paro said, in the merit of Yosef, the best of Egypt is yours. And the command to give them a portion of the best of the land, in the manner that they took a stronghold of it, and they multiplied greatly. And likewise, we must understand regarding the Haftorah, being that the strength of Yehuda was only for that specific time, before it was revealed that it was Yosef, that connection does not have the strength of Yehuda in the Haftorah. And David, my servant, will be their leader forever. And on the contrary, being that Yosef and the Tzaddik was the one in charge of Egypt, it was later revealed, indeed, the content that it is seemingly the opposite of the Haftorah, where it speaks about Yehuda being elevated over Yosef, and David, my servant, will be their leader forever. In other words, according to how it was in the truth of Yosef the Tzaddik, was the ruler over the land. Yosef himself is the one that expresses the strength of the Jewish people in the land of Egypt, hence it is unnecessary to have the strength of Yehuda approached him. However, since all matters in Torah are true and eternal, also an original understanding in Torah, and especially that in our case the matter of approach to Yehuda was not an original thought, rather it actually took place, we must say that the strength of Yehuda and Yehuda approach was not only a matter of a short period of time, rather this is accomplished an innovation even in comparison to the strength of Yosef at that time, and specifically with this power it can be, and they took a stronghold of it, and this also acts in the preparation for, and David my servant is their leader forever in time to come. And when we say that this is understood from what it is said that he sent Yehuda in front of him to Yosef to show the way before him to Goshen, to make a place for him and to show him how to settle it. For seemingly since Yosef was leading the land of Egypt, and he, as per the command of Paro, gave the best of the land to Yaakov and his children. So why was Yehuda needed to make a place for him, to show him how he should settle in it? From this it's understood that specifically the strength of Yehuda has the power to accomplish this. And maybe we say the focal point of the explanation of this, the strength of a Jew in this world, and in addition, in the time of exile, all the kingdoms called Egypt can be in two manners. First, his strength is only the rules of nature and conduct in the world permit. And likewise in the time of exile, in accordance with limitations of exile, as the limitations of exile, the laws on the contrary and like permit. And second, he stands truly above all the matters of the world and the nations of the world, and most certainly of exile. Moreover, he manages with them with strength to the extent that he has the power to change also the laws and the conduct of the country. And when we say that the strength of Yehuda accomplishes that a Jew is not a ruler and Baal Habayis over the nations of the world in the time of exile as per the rules of the world of exile, as was regarding Yosef, rather he stands completely above this, as we shall explain. We will understand that based on the explanation of the matter which Mordechai the Jew conducted himself during the time of King Ahasuerus, for he was in a situation similar to that of Yehuda standing before Yosef. Since the Jews were at the time of exile of Persia and Media under the rule of King Ahasuerus, we are servants of Ahasuerus, not at the time of days of Hanukkah, which was during the time of the second base of Vayigash, not in the days of Hanukkah, which was during the time of the second base of Migdash. Nevertheless, Mordechai's conduct was such that he would not kneel nor bow down to Haman, although all the king's servants kneeled and bowed down to Haman, because the king had so commanded regarding him. And Mordechai firmly stood so, even when the servants of the king said to him, "Why do you disobey the king's command?" Regarding King Ahasuerus' feast, it says in Megillah Esther, so it was established by the king to do according to each man's desire, literally each man and man. The Talmud says about this that it meant to do the desire of Mordechai and Haman. Of Mordechai it says the Jewish man, and of Haman it says the man who is an adversary and an enemy. In the Midrash there are two explanations of the verse. Hashem said to him, "I cannot satisfy my creations, and you seek to do according to every man's desire. In a way of the world, when two men desire to marry the same woman, can she marry both of them? It must be either one or the other. Similarly, two ships will lie in harbor, one waiting for a north wind and the other for a south wind. Can the same wind move them both together? It must be either one or the other. Tomorrow, two men will appear before you in a lawsuit, a Jewish man and a man who is an adversary and enemy. Can you satisfy both of them? You will have to exalt one and hang the other." In other words, Ahasuerus was mistaken in this, since it is not plausible or possible to accomplish two opposites at the same time, both the desire of Mordechai, the Jewish man, as well as the desire of Haman, a man who is an adversary and enemy, and therefore the verse ridicules him because he will not be able to fulfill the desires of Mordechai and Haman, which were contradictive. Rav Huna said in the name of Rav Benjamin ben Levi, being that in this world prior to the redemption, when the north wind blows, the south wind does not blow. However, in the time to come, in the gathering of exile, Hashem has said, "I will bring a strong wind into the world in which both winds are combined. Who is in it that fulfills the desires of who fear him? This is the Holy One, blessed be he of whom it is written. He will fulfill the desire of those that fear him. That is, even though there will be two desires, one opposite the other, Hashem will fulfill the desire of both of them. And this is the meaning of the desire of those that fear him, and he will do their cry, he will hear. And even though the request of one goes against the other, Hashem will heed both of them." However, Ahasuerus was not able to fulfill the desires of his two beloved ministers, which were contradictory to each other. And even though he said two people desire to marry one maidservant, this is referring to as the customary in the world, running according to the laws of nature in the case of the ordinary people, as he said, in the ways of the world. But for those who fear Hashem, he fulfills the desires of both of them, meaning that Hashem, in the conduct of the time to come, will act in a way of doing according to each man's desire. We must understand that from the crude expression of the Talmud above, according to each man's desire to do the will of Mordechai and Haman, without contradicting the statement in any way, it is implied that even from the perspective of Ahasuerus, there is a place for this conduct. Similarly, how does it fit with the statement of the Midrash with logic reasoning according to both explanations that we cannot fulfill two contrary desires? And even according to the second explanation in the Midrash, this is only in the power of Hashem that he will do specifically in the future times. We can propose the following explanation when speaking about the ways of the world, that which is customary in the world, running according to the laws of nature, and similarly with respect to Hashem, so to speak, as he is vested in the conduct of the world, the name Elohim. Indeed, there cannot be a conduct of doing according to each man's desire, like the will of Mordechai and Haman, since they have contradictory desires. However, this is not so when one speaks of Hashem and he stands above the conduct of the world, as will be revealed in the time to come. Then it will be possible to do according to each man's desire, both opposite wills together. And this is the difference between the explanation of this in the Talmud and the Midrash. The first explanation in the Midrash, according to the ways of the world. The second explanation speaks of as it according to Hashem's conduct in the time to come. And from what is implied in the Talmud, indeed, even the doing according to each man's desire at the time of Ahasuerus has a practical result, since also at the present time a Jew can, through his connection with Hashem, elevate himself to the level of the time to come, that he has a phenomenon of doing according to each man's desire, as we will explain. And the explanation of this, according to Hasidus, Ahasuerus is the source of the holiness, refers to Hashem, so to speak. And our sages say Ahasuerus refers to Hashem, since Achares, the end, and Reshis, the beginning, are his. It follows then that So the king established to do what the will of each man, and man refers to the way Hashem has set up the world as such that there is a will of a man and a man, a person's personal choice to go according to the will of either Mordechai or Haman. Free will is granted to every person. If he desires to turn himself in the path of good and be righteous, the choice is his. And if he should desire to turn the path of evil and be wicked, the choice is his. But this is only applies to the mere existence of the will of man and a man. Two opposite wills, and a man chooses one of them. This is not the case, however, concerning doing according to the will of man and a man. To the according of both of them, which cannot be accomplished in actuality, since the will of Mordechai is in a matter of holiness and the will of Haman is in a matter of opposite kind. Therefore, in effect, both wills cannot be carried out. Either the will of Mordechai is carried out or the will of Haman. In greater depth, the contradiction of doing the will of man and a man is not only that in effect one cannot perform according to both wills, but rather the evil of Mordechai and Haman, the will of a man and a man, are in general two opposite approaches that seemingly rule one another out entirely. The will of Mordechai is conducted in a manner of not kneeling and prostrating himself, as our sages state concerning Mordechai's being called a Yehudi, because he denied idolatry. For anyone who denies idolatry is called Yehudi, and therefore every Jew is called by the name Yehudi, since one's Judaism is summoned up in him denying idolatry, not kneeling and prostrating oneself. And it is known that it includes not only idolatry literally, rather anything that is not connected with the command, and you shall serve Hashem your God, even if it does not contradict Jewish law. It is called idolatry, since that service is strange to him. It is strange to a Jew, since the entire content of a Jew is to do the will of your Father in heaven. As our sages say, I was created only to serve my master, and since I was created is every moment of a person's existence in this world, it is understood that every detail of the service of every moment must be to serve my master. As the Torah command, all your actions should be for the sake of heaven, and in all your ways know him, all specifically, and not only all of your actions, rather also that each and every action should be entirely for the sake of heaven. And if there is a minor something that remains outside of this serving one's master, it is also service of strange to him, since this is the opposite of I have been created, including the perfection of this, when your actions are not merely for the sake of heaven, whether with your actions and your ways themselves know him, and moreover they become heaven itself, like eating and drinking on the Shabbos, which are themselves a mitzvah, the mitzvah of having pleasure on Shabbos. And this is the will of Mordechai, that not only kneeling and prostrating himself to anything in the world, even a permitted thing, according to the Shulchan Aruch, since everything that is not a service of Hashem is a service that is strange to him. By contrast, the will of Haman is idolatry, not only literal idolatry, heaven forbid, rather any service that is strange to him, to a Jew, being that it is not the service of Hashem. And his claim is, since we find ourselves in this world and in exile, we are subject to the laws and limitations of nature, which Hashem created, and therefore one needs to give them consideration, at least with respect to permitted things and matters of this world. It is clear, therefore, that to do the will of man and man, to do the will of a man and a man, the will of Mordechai and Haman, is in contradiction within itself. When a Jew in this world, and in addition to the time of the exile, we are still servants of Ahasuerus, where he has different limitations due to the conduct of nature in the world and the laws of the country, the laws of the government is the law, and the limitation imposed due to accept conduct in that country, when all this does not conflict with the fulfillment of Torah mitzvahs that force him, according to the will of Hashem and according to Torah, to behave in a certain fashion, then it is not possible to fulfill the will of a man and a man, since the will of Mordechai, not kneel and not prostrate himself, in view of the fact that anything outside of serving Hashem is idolatry, seemingly negates not only the practical carrying out of Haman's will, but rather the entire approach that one need give consideration to accepting worldly practice. And on the other hand, if we take into consideration that Haman sent Jews into exile, then seemingly the conduct should be according to the will of Haman, limited to the conduct of the world, when he does not conflict with Torah mitzvahs. Notwithstanding this, the novelty is, when we are connected with Hashem, as he stands above the conduct of the world, we have the ability to join two opposites, as we are in the world of in exile. We can indeed not kneel and not prostrate, since we are entirely above these limitations. According to the above explanation, the word of the Midrash can be readily understood. The two explanations of the Midrash express two approaches in a Jew's divine service in the time of exile, being that Hashem has sent a Jew into this world in addition into exile under the rule of Ahasuerus, and it is the law of the Torah, the law of the government is the law. Apparently, one could think, as the will of Haman, that in a matter of the world, not regarding the things that are connected to Torah and mitzvahs, it is possible that there should be two opposites of like the will of man and a man, the will of Mordechai and Haman, at once, together with we are all servants of Ahasuerus in exile. One may act in a matter of not to kneel and not to prostrate to the ways of the world, since only one of this is possible. If Hashem has sent a Jew into exile, this means that one is some degree limited by the conduct of nature and the laws of the land, as the will of Haman. If we are not in exile, which then one acts according to the will of Mordechai in the manner of not kneeling and not prostrating, it is not possible to say that there is the will of Haman. With respect to the obligation that a Jew has of fulfilling Torah and mitzvahs according to the Shulchan Aruch, it is clear and simple: no one in any form can rule over a Jew, even in the time of exile. But with respect to matters of the permitted and matters of the world, your actions and your ways, how is it possible that he may act both according to the will of Haman, namely according to the conduct of nature, according to the ways of the world, and if not, he is transgressing and the commandment of the king, and according to the will of Mordechai, not to kneel and not to prostrate. Hence, Midrash says that in the case there is a contradiction between the will of man and a man, where we are speaking of the conduct of the world. However, from the perspective of Hashem, as he is above the conduct of nature, both things can be achieved simultaneously. A Jew can find himself in the world and in exile, servants of Ahasuerus, and at the same time stand entirely above all matters of the world in exile, not to kneel and not to prostrate, until even after the effects of the Gentile king who rules over him. Until he even affects the Gentile king who rules over him. And this is the meaning of the crude expression of the Talmud, to do the will of a man and a man, to do according to the will of Mordechai and Haman. The Talmud does not treat this with contempt, since Mordechai's complete nullification to Hashem, not kneeling and not prostrating, denying idolatry, connected him to the strength of Hashem, who is above the conduct of the world, giving the power for him on one hand, being in the Persian exile under King Ahasuerus, yet at the same time maintaining the complete perfection of not kneeling and not prostrating, until this also brought about the nullification of Haman's decree and the promotion of Mordechai to be the second to the king. And this Hashem gives over to the will of the Jew. Even when he finds himself in exile, he has the choice to act like the will of man, and this is the steadfast only insofar as it is necessary to actually fulfill Torah and mitzvahs, but in all other matters he feels as if he is subject to the limitations of nature, and in the ways of the world, in the service of a stranger to him, according to the will of Haman, heaven forbid, or he chooses to act according to the will of Mordechai, that in all matters he stands over and above the world and the exile, being connected with Hashem, and therefore regarding him there is no kneeling and no prostrating to any manner that is service of Hashem, and it only depends on his will. In the matter, however, there are differences from one generation to another. In most of the generation there were many limitations from outside powers, royal decrees and such like, which did not allow Jews to stand entirely over and above the exile. This is not the case, however, in our generation, where it is dependent only on the will of a Jew. Based on this, we will understand the achievement of Yehuda, and Yehuda approached him that surpasses Yosef. Although Yosef the Tzaddik was the ruler of the land, which shows that a Jew is a master over the world and over the nations of the world around him, nevertheless he was appointed to the position by Paro, the king of Egypt, namely that this is connected to the decree of the king and the laws of the country, and in such after him being appointed, I will be greater than you only in the throne, which shows that Yosef still has a minor connection to the limitations of the world and of Egypt. Whereas the strength of Yehuda approached him constitutes the fact that he approached Yosef without receiving permission first, and affected him, and Yosef was not able to hold himself in, which denotes a strength that does not take into account the conduct of the country and the ways of the world. In other words, a union of two approaches, and he as the will of man, along with Yehuda knowing that he needs Yosef in order to free Benjamin, to the extent that Yehuda tells him, you are like Paro, which therefore he, Yosef, has the power to fulfill the request of Yehuda, and also that with Yehuda eliminates Yosef, sending him to Paro through the reasoning that the throne is higher than you. He acted with complete authority as if he did not need Yosef, and Yehuda approached him powerfully. And therefore, specifically after Yehuda approached him, did we receive the power which, with the help of Yosef, that there should be the Jewish people settled in the land of Egypt, in the land of Goshen, the best of the land, although one finds himself in the land of Mitzrayim, Egypt, an idiom for Mitzrayim. Limitations under the kingdom of Paro. The phenomenon of the Jewish people settled takes place there in a matter of truly settling. Moreover, and they took a stronghold of it. They received an estate, and a matter of holding on to it strongly, which expresses a stronghold as such that they become the one in charge there, to the extent that they multiplied greatly in a manner of beyond limits. And this brings about afterward immediately Vayigash. And Yaakov lived in the land of Egypt for 17 years. That in Egypt he had a good life. 17, and numerical value of Hebrew letters of Tov, good, the true life, physically and spiritually. With this we will understand the connection of Yehuda approached him to, and David my servant will be their leader forever in the Haftorah. The strength of Yehuda approached Yosef, empowered by his connection to Hashem through Yehuda, an idiom of Ha'ora or Hadora, submission to Hashem, as Hashem is above the conduct of the world, as will be revealed in the time to come, is a preparation which gives the power to bring the true and complete redemption, when there will be manifested at the height of perfection throughout the entire world. The strength of David my servant will be their leader forever, connected to the complete strength of Hashem, who has the power to accomplish the will of those that fear him. He shall do the union of two opposite desires, as such that this affects also the nations, and the nations will know that I am Hashem. And as the Rambam rules that the King Mashiach will fight the wars of Hashem and win all the nations around him. This accomplishes the fulfillment of, then I shall transform the nations to have a clear tongue to call out in the name of Hashem and to serve him as one. And as explained in many places, that the power of the revelation of David my servant will be the leader forever, the virtue of Yehuda, and as a result of initial step of Yehuda approached him, that Yehuda receives the godly revelation from Yosef, and through this the virtue of Yehuda is revealed, and David my servant will be their leader forever, similar to the phenomenon of redemption being adjacent to prayer, which accomplishes that also in prayer, Malchus Yehuda, there is drawn the phenomenon of the redemption of Yosef Yesod, to the extension that it becomes one long redemption, namely that Malchus itself becomes the angel that redeems. And based on that above, we may add to this that Yehuda approached him is emphasized in addition to the submission and receiving from Yosef, also and mainly the strength of Yehuda due to his virtue that surpasses Yosef's, and the fact that it needed to proceed, and the fact that he needs to receive him is only in order to reveal strength and completeness, as will be in the time to come. Based on the above, we will understand a lesson and instruction where Yehuda approached him regarding our generation and our time period, standing right before the true and complete redemption, notwithstanding the strength of Yehuda in this time and Mordechai in his time, and that the Tzaddikim throughout the generations, still there were limitations from our other outer powers, namely imposed by the nations of the world and their decrees on the Jewish people, heaven forbid. This shall not occur again, which did not always allow the Jewish people to act with complete strength and authority. Whereas in our generation, in our present time, we see an actual fact that the inferences of the past are no more, and the nations of the world will allow the Jewish people to act as they desire. And therefore the matter is only up to the Jewish people to fulfill. They took a stronghold of it, and they multiplied greatly, as in actually done in many places with complete strength and boldness, both in the country of America, a country of kindness, who let the Jewish people act as they desire, and similarly in many countries of the world. And recently we see how in the countries that there were previously several limitations, these limitations have ceased, as spoken many times. And on the contrary, not only are the Jewish people free to act as they desire, what more, the government of the nations of the world help them to do this. And in addition to the Jewish people being able to act in the ways of Torah and mitzvahs in their own 4 cubits, we also see in actual fact that in recent years it is becoming constantly easier to accomplish the taking a stronghold of it in every single place throughout the entire world, since the world, not only Jews, rather also the nations of the world, is a vessel for receiving matters of Judaism, Torah, and mitzvahs, and regarding the nations of the world, the 7 Nochide mitzvahs, to the extent as we spoke and aroused many times recently. That, and according to the notification of my revered father-in-law, the Rebbe leader of our generation, we have already completed all the preparation for the redemption. And now all the and now all that is necessary is for us to draw the redemption into the realm of reality, into the physicality and coarse physical reality of the world. Coarse physicality that is transformed into physicality in a clear, open way to the physical eyes. Notwithstanding the strength of the service of the Jewish people in exile, and even as they are in exile in a state of spiritual redemption, this is not yet the completeness of redemption in the simple sense revealed literally in the physical world, which will eliminate exile. With all these jurisdictions of exile, children are exiled from being at the table of their father, including the fact that at the time the Jewish people are, heaven forbid, like aguna. And the fact that the Jewish people are, heaven forbid, like an aguna, for her husband Hashem went to a foreign country after their betrothal, an exodus from Egypt, until there will be the marriage in the true and complete redemption. Now all is necessary to open the eyes, as we will see the entire world demands that every Jew should already be in a state of true and complete redemption. And when we say that this itself is the reason why we see today how Jewish people can stand with complete strength and authority over the nations of the world in the matter of Judaism, and it is only up to them. For since we are right before the redemption, when my servant David will be their leader forever, and the nations will know that I am Hashem, will be revealed in reality. Therefore, this reflects itself in reality in the state of our generation as a preparation that leads straight into the true and complete redemption through Mashiach. And to add that this is hinted in Yehuda approached him, that together with the help from the strength of the service of Yosef of our generation, my revered father-in-law, the Rebbe, leader of our generation, we also have Yehuda approached him, Mashiach, who will come literally soon, and David, my servant, will be their leader forever, who comes with the help and empowerment of Yosef of our generation. You are like Paro of holiness, and all lights burst forth and are revealed from him. From this, it's also understood that the lesson for our generation, through us acting in a manner of Yehuda approach them, that we show strength and authority regarding Judaism being a Jew, which the world was created for the Jewish people. This itself brings David, my servant, will be their leader forever. The phenomena of Yehuda approached him, the strength and authority of the Jewish people over the world in our generation, is also emphasized in the 5th of Teves, which was also the 5th day of the week, the preface to Shabbos. And this Shabbos, the 7th of Teves, is within the 3 days of the 5th of Teves. This day is connected to the release and redeeming of the captives, of the books and manuscripts of the Rebbe's, of leaders, and in a manner of us having complete agreement and assistance of the laws of the nations of the world to the eyes of all the nations in the federal court. There are, however, more books and handwritten manuscripts from my revered father-in-law Rebbe and his father, the Rebbe Rashab, may live in Eden, or may rest in Eden, that is, which are still in captivity in that country and still have not been returned. That country is referring to as Russia, and not been returned to their place, even though also regarding them there has already kindly erect even the nations of the world that they should be free. And connected also with the fact that in the recent days the capital of that country was subdued to the extent that we moved it to a different city through the writing and signing of the laws of that country, which in the manner of this, the laws of the country is the law. What can every person do to hasten the redemption and return the books and manuscripts? The answer is simple. Through each and every male and female, men, women, and children do something similar through bringing into one's house and into one's library and the like new holy books and manuscripts in a matter of Torah, in addition to the books that he has from before in his house full of books. And today this is an easy thing to do, since every week new matters in Torah are printed, both those that are being reprinted as well as, moreover and mainly, new ones. As a result, it is easy to buy books, and in this way add more books and more in receiving and buying new books. As known, the leader of our generation, for why the books need to cost money, to the extent that he requested to put the price on several books, and he explained the reason for this. Since olam, world, idiom alam, concealment, a valuable object costs money, and his basis is in a saying of our sages, a doctrine that costs nothing is worth nothing. And most certainly that is so must be in regarding the words of Torah, which Torah brings healing to the world. And whoever is speedy, he is praised. Resolution should be taken the above now, and fulfillment this as soon as possible, including through making an order in advance and hence pay for it. A subscription to receive new books that will be published later in the new expression printed in several books, and when the book is printed, one receives the subscription immediately. Likewise, it is also suggested to utilize the Jewish custom in giving holy books that are printed in a present to others, including small children, for their happy occasion or for a holiday or the like. And may it be the will of Hashem that through everyone broadening their efforts in getting new books, this will hasten yet more the fulfillment of Yehuda approached him in redeeming Benjamin, that all the books and manuscripts of the Rebbe, the leader and our leaders, manuscripts of the Rebbes, our leaders, shall be returned to their true place, the house of our Rebbe in the diaspora 770, the numerical value of Paratza, and unite there with all the books and manuscripts of the Rebbes of our leaders. Our Rebbes are leaders, and literally immediately this should bring with it the redemption of the captives of the sparks of holiness in the world. And literally immediately all the Jewish people go, with our young and with our old, with our sons and with our daughters, and their silver and their gold with them, including all their books and manuscripts, to our holy land, to the holy city of Yerushalayim, to the holy mountain, to the third base of Migdash, to the Holy of Holies, where the Shisia stone is found without any change since the creation of the world. And all of this literally immediately. Thank you for watching. Hag Sameach.